Well, it's truly a blessing to be here today. Good to see you all. Man, it does my heart wonders to see y'all. Man, we're gonna go to 1 Corinthians 7. So, man, if I had to pick one of the most controversial topics to talk about in the Bible, probably be this one right here, and that's the subject of marriage and divorce. And I had been going over this with myself for a couple of months now, and just so happened when Minister Griffin got those questions, those were the ones that kind of stuck out to me. And like I said, I had been already going over it, and been wanting to talk about it and kind of in depth, because it's a lot to talk about. The reason why is because your relationship with God is set up like a marriage, just like the church is set up like a marriage with God and Christ. And so I think it's very important that we understand how a marriage is supposed to go, and what the roles are for the husband and the wife. And I know he has some questions in there, and I know a lot of times, especially when you're answering questions like this, you don't have time to expound on a lot of it. But I'm gonna try to cover it, if you don't mind, brother. I'm gonna try to cover some of those questions in depth, But yeah, so here we go. 1 Corinthians 7, starting with verse 1. It says, "Now concerning the things whereof you wrote unto me, it is good for a man not to touch a woman. Nevertheless, to avoid fornication, let every man have his own wife, and let every woman have her own husband." So right off the bat, we see one of the reasons why, although I haven't found any other reason to get married, is for, in the physical, to have intimacy with one another. Because I think I said once before, you can literally live with someone, you can pay bills, you can have a relationship, date, as long as you're not having sex, and you don't have to get married. And this is something that they did back then when they talked about keeping their virgins and stuff. But he said, if you feel like you're going to be something toward her, then marry, and you have done nothing wrong. But it says, "Nevertheless, to avoid fornication, let every man have his own wife, and let every woman have her own husband. Let the husband render unto the wife due benevolence, and likewise also the wife unto the husband. The wife have not power of her own body, but the husband, and likewise also the husband have not power over his own body, but the wife." This is one of the biggest problems that we have in a marriage. I've talked to several people about this, and they're like, "Oh, I just don't think that he should have anything to say about what I wear or what I do." Of course he should. Of course she should, because that's not your body. That belongs to your spouse. And I don't care which way you try to finagle it. If you call yourself being a Christian, if you call yourself being a child of God, and you don't adhere to this, then you are none of his, because your body does not belong to you. I stopped. You know how you get in the car, and so at my job we have patrol units, and you get in the car and it already be, they have radio stations set, and the Steve Harvey morning show was on, and they were talking about a strawberry letter where this guy wrote in, and he was talking about his wife and how she get mad at him because he said something about what she wear and this, that, and the other, and her going out and stuff like that. And don't you know them folks crucified that man? First of all, he shouldn't have been writing in the first place, But he did. And so they crucified that man talking about, oh, well, maybe she feeling herself and you need to let her do this and let her do that and this, that, and the other. But your body does not belong to you. And also it tells you that let the husband render unto the wife due benevolence, and likewise also the wife unto the husband. If your husband come in and he wants sex from you, you got to give it to him. If your wife come in and she wants sex from you, you got to give it to her. Because your body don't belong to you. And people have a real big problem with them because they want to withhold and then they expect everything to turn out okay. It says, defraud ye not one the other, except it be with consent for a time. The only time you withhold from one another is if it's consensual that you gonna abstain from it. Now I always say the other partner or spouse or whatever should be considerate. I do believe that. But if they want their body, you got to give it to them. It says that ye may give yourselves to fasting and prayer and come together again, that Satan tempt you not for your incontinency. Okay, a lot of people think that that's a mistype. It's not. Incontinency comes from the word incontinent, which means lack of sexual self-control. Now remember, what is the reason why you get married? To have sex. So there is no point in you getting married if you don't want to have sex with your spouse. Just like it ain't no point in you being a Christian if you don't want to be intimate with Christ. You might well just stay out there where you at. But the only reason for you to get married is to have sex and procreate and have kids so that you won't be in the wrong. But nowadays we our people, I say our people, we glorify having kids out of wedlock more than we do them getting married. Oh, I'm too young to get married, but you're not too young to have a child. Wouldn't it be more helpful if you had a husband to help you with the children that you're having?
Yeah.
But we'll glorify that and we'll lift that up, but we won't lift up marriage. This supposed to be married woman. She's been married for about 14 years. I went to school with her. And she on there telling women, you know, you enjoy your single life and this, that, and the other. And I said, you seem to promote single life and independence more than you do marriage. It seemed like to me a woman who has a successful marriage of 14 years will promote being married. But that's what we do. I said, you know, it even tells you that the older women should teach the younger women how to be keepers at home, how to be chaste. But what are we teaching the younger women? Nothing. And then they learn from the world, go out here, spread their legs open and have a child and think they made it in the world. But you don't have a husband. It says, defraud ye not one the other, except it be with consent for a time, that ye may give yourselves to fasting and prayer and come together again. Even the Bible is telling you to come together again, that Satan tempt you not for your incontinency. Because if you keep saying no, somebody gonna say yes.
That's right.
Somebody gonna say yes. It says, but I speak this by permission and not of commandment, for I would that all men were even as myself. But every man hath his proper gift of God, one after this manner and another after that. Some people are able to be unmarried and not desire sex. That's a gift if you can do that. But some have the gift after this manner, some have to give after another. So some people have to get married. It says, I say therefore to the unmarried and widows, it is good for them if they abide even as I. It says to the unmarried and to the widows. It says, but if they cannot contain, let them marry. For it is better to marry than to burn. And unto the married I command, yet not I, but the Lord, let not the wife depart from her husband. But and if she depart, let her remain unmarried, or be reconciled to her husband. Let not the husband put away his wife. But to the rest I speak, I, not the Lord. If any brother hath a wife that believeth not, and she be pleased to dwell with him, let him not put her away. And the woman which hath a husband that believeth not, and if he be pleased to dwell with her, let her not leave him. Okay. So in the first section, we're talking about marriage between believers, right? We're talking about marriage between believers. In this section right here, because remember now, Paul is writing this to the Corinthians, who are Gentiles, and Gentiles basically means non-Jew. Okay? He is telling them the way that things should go. So he's telling them, when you come in, if you're already married and you come into the faith, then and your husband or your wife decide that they don't want to go that route, you can't divorce them simply because of that. Right. Especially if they're pleased to dwell with you. Right? So, and when I think about being pleased to dwell, I mean doing things that will not hinder you from obeying God. Because just like Peter said, he said it's better for us to obey God than to obey man. Yeah. So, prime example, I just give you an example. Let's just say you were a drug addict, right? And you decided that you're going to turn your life over. But your spouse, they don't want to give the drugs up. To me, that's not being pleased to dwell with you, because that can very well cause you to relapse. Now, Paul never said that you couldn't get a divorce. He never said that you couldn't leave your wife or leave your husband or put your wife away. He said that if you do it, to remain unmarried, else be reconciled to them. Now, it's a hard pill to swallow, because you very well may have a good reason to divorce your spouse. You very well, if a man beating on you and all this, you very well may have a good reason to divorce your spouse. And I'll tell you that I fought with this. But he never said anything about you remarrying, because he also said that your husband have the law over you until he is gone. Now, he did say that a widow could remarry. And actually over in 2 Timothy, I believe it is, he encouraged the young widows to remarry so that the church wouldn't have to take care of them. But he said in the Lord, and you'll see that later. But it says, but and if she depart, let her remain unmarried, or be reconciled to her husband, and let not the husband put away his wife. But to the rest I speak, I, not the Lord. If any brother hath a wife that believeth not, and she be pleased to dwell with him, let him not put her away. And the woman which hath an husband that believeth not, and if he be pleased to dwell with her, let her not leave him. For the unbelieving husband is sanctified by the wife, and the unbelieving wife is sanctified by the husband. Else were your children unclean, but now are they holy. And Minister Griffin made the distinguishment between sanctified. That means that the marriage will be set apart. That don't mean that they gonna be saved because you saved. They still gotta live a certain life. Because when you go before the judgment seat of Christ, you're gonna be there by yourself. And you can't live life for your spouse, just like they can't live life for you. So but your marriage is gonna be dealt with differently, as well as your children. You're going to be set apart. It says, but how are they holy? And it says the unbelieving is sanctified by the husband, else were your children unclean, but now are they holy. But if the unbelieving depart, let him depart. A brother or sister is not under bondage in such cases, but God hath called us to peace. For what knowest thou, O wife, whether thou shalt have saved thy husband, or what knowest thou, O man, whether thou shalt save thy wife? Okay, but as God have distributed to every man, as the Lord have called everyone, so let him walk, and so ordain I in all the churches. Now, I think one of the questions, let me go back to it, was, is an unbeliever saved by marrying a believer? Also, is it okay for a saved woman to marry an unsaved man? The answers is no and no.
Right.
No and no. Yeah, capital N O. No and no. Your unbelieving spouse is not saved because you are saved. The marriage is sanctified and is set apart and dealt with differently. Huh? As well as your children. But because this is talking about, first it talked about believers marrying believers. Right. Then it talked about unbelievers coming into the faith, except only one spouse has come into the faith. Huh? But just like it says over in which one is that? Where it says be not unequally yoked. Yeah. But somebody asked me one time, they were talking about, what if a Christian marry a Muslim? No. See, the only reason you even contemplating it is that you done already had sex. That's the only reason you contemplate, because ain't nobody got that good conversation. Ain't no conversation that good to have you thinking that you want to marry somebody who is opposite of you. That's right. That's right. Not unless they talking about converting over. But no, it ain't no conversation that good got you thinking that. That's the only reason you thinking, can a saved person marry an unsaved person, or a believer marry a non-believer? What I look like marrying somebody who is agnostic, or an atheist, or a Muslim. Not unless she finna get ready and convert over to Christianity. Right. But she got to do that, but that got to be done first. Yeah. That's got to be done first. But the only reason you even think about something like that is that you already had sex with them and it's good. And it was good to you. So, no. Just like he said, capital N, capital O. No. The number 11 said, my spouse is godless and I'm trying to be a good Christian. His influence has been terrible. Should I divorce him? Look here. So, but let's talk about it though, because what type of influence, right? Did you used to be an alcoholic? Man. Did you used to be a drug addict? Right. I mean, is he trying to get you to indulge in some pornography or something? I don't know. Right. Because influence is a very broad thing, right? So we have to be more specific when it comes down to it. But even if you do leave, there is nothing in here that says you can remarry someone else. It says to be reconciled to your husband. Yeah. And that's the hard truth. Now, I know that there are some things that Paul may not have been able to put in here, or whatever the case may be, but we can only go with what we can go with. We can only go with what we can go with. 18 says, is any man called being circumcised? Let him not become uncircumcised. Is any called in uncircumcision? Let him not be circumcised. Circumcision is nothing and uncircumcision is nothing, but the keeping of the commandments of God. Let every man abide in the same calling wherein he was called. So what this is saying is that when you come in and you already married, don't seek to be. Is there anyone come in with a wife? Don't seek to be unmarried. If anybody come in married, don't seek to be unmarried. If you come in unmarried, don't seek to be married. However, if you marry, you haven't done anything wrong as long as it's in the Lord. It says circumcision is nothing and uncircumcision is nothing, but the keeping of the commandments of God. Let every man abide in the same calling wherein he was called. Art thou called being a servant? Care not for it. But if thou mayest be made free, use it rather. For he that is called in the Lord, being a servant, is the Lord's free man. Likewise, also he that is called being free is Christ's servant. Ye are bought with a price. Be not ye the servants of men. Brethren, let every man wherein he is called therein abide with God. Now concerning virgins, I have no commandment of the Lord. Yet I give my judgment as one that hath ordained or obtained mercy of the Lord to be faithful. I suppose therefore that this is good for the present distress. I say that it is good for a man so to be. Art thou bound unto a wife? Seek not to be loosed. Art thou loosed from a wife? Seek not a wife. But, and if thou marry, thou hast not sinned. That's just what I just got finished saying. If you already married, don't seek to be unmarried. But if you come in unmarried, don't seek to be married. But if you do marry, you haven't sinned. Nevertheless, such shall have trouble in the flesh. But I spare you. You're gonna have some trouble. You're gonna have some trouble for real. Two people trying to come together, coming from different backgrounds, having different beliefs.
Yeah.
One person grew up in a house full of affection. Another person grew up in the house with none. You're gonna have some trouble. You're gonna have some struggles. It says, art thou loose from a wife? Seek not a wife, and if you marry, thou hast not sinned. And if a virgin marry, she have not sinned. Nevertheless, such shall have trouble in the flesh, but I spare you. But this I say, brethren, the time is short. It remaineth that both they that have wives be as though they had none, and they that weep as though they wept not, and they that rejoice as though they rejoice not, and they that buy as though they possess not, and they that use this world are not abusing it, for the fashion of this world passeth away. But I would have you without carefulness. He that is unmarried careth for the things that belong to the Lord, how he may please the Lord. But he that is married careth for the things that are of the world, how he may please his wife. I mean, prime example, look at Adam. Adam already knew what he was doing. But his wife wanted him to try that fruit. She wanted him to try the fruit. And then she came with that feminine, docile, submissive tone. You know, I mean, I don't think it's going to really do nothing. And Adam melted. He was like, oh, okay. All right, then. But that's what you care about. You care about the things of the world, how you can please your spouse. That don't mean you can't please God, but I mean, it's going to be a struggle. Because that's what you're looking for. You're looking for how you can please your spouse and how you can keep them happy. So it says, but he that is married careth for the things that are of the world, how he may please his wife. There is difference also between wife and a virgin. The unmarried woman careth for the things of the Lord, that she may be holy both in body and in spirit. But she that is married careth for the things of the world, how she may please her husband. And this I speak for your own profit, not that I may cast a snare upon you, but for that which is comely, and that ye may attend upon the Lord without distraction. But if any man think that he behaveth himself, uncomely toward his virgin, if she pass the flower of her age, and needs so require, let him do what he will, he sinneth not, let them marry. Nevertheless, he that standeth steadfast in his heart, having no necessity, but have no power of his own will, and have so decreed in his heart that he will keep his virgin, doeth well. And that's what I was talking about. They had virgins in their midst, but they weren't married to them, but they also wasn't having sex with them.
Yeah.
Because the primary responsibility of man when he had a virgin was to take care of her. You didn't have to be married because you weren't having sex. And that's what it goes back to. You may have a very good reason to divorce somebody, like I said. And so you're saying, well, I can't contain myself. I need somebody. What do I do? And the answer is, I don't know. I honestly don't. I've gone over it, and nothing in here says anything about you remarrying, even if it's for a good reason. If you get a divorce for a good reason. But the only thing I can tell you is refer back to verse 1. It's good for a man not to touch a woman. But if he can't contain himself, then get married. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I've been going over this for about 2 months now. Just specifically this. And I've been searching and searching and searching. Yeah. I don't have the answer. Because it's not expressly written. I can give you my opinion on it. I always say that this right here is 80% interpretation and 20% common sense. And sometimes you don't have either. I don't. I would be remiss if I sat here and told you that I had the answer. But I don't, because it's not in here. Everything, now, if you want my opinion, it's saying that you're supposed to stay unmarried. Look, I got heat under my collar. It's saying that you're supposed to stay unmarried. But if you can't contain yourself, what did it say? Rule number 1 is this, rule number 2 is this, rule number 3 is refer back to rule number 1. If you can't contain yourself, then marry. And if you're in the wrong, you seek forgiveness. But I don't have the answer for you. It says, so then he that giveth her in marriage doeth well, but he that giveth her not in marriage doeth better. The wife is bound by the law as long as her husband liveth. But if her husband be dead, she is at liberty to be married to whom she will, only in the Lord. But she is happier if she abide after my judgment, and I think also that I have the Spirit of God. Let's go to Ephesians 5. 5, we'll start with verse 22. Verse 22. It says, wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands as unto the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church. And he is the Savior of the body. Therefore, as the church is subject unto Christ, so let the wives be to their own husbands in some of the stuff that they want to be subject to them in. Everything. Right? Everything. Husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it, that he might sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of water by the word, that he might present it to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that it should be holy and without blemish. So ought men to love their wives as their own bodies. A man coming in from a late night, been drinking and stuff, and start wailing on you. You think he love you? You tell your wife, look, baby, we gonna do this right here and do this right here, and I think this is gonna be good for the family. And she tell you, I ain't doing that. I ain't doing that. You do that on your own, or you say, hey, baby, can you cook me something to eat? I ain't finna cook you. You grown man, you cook your own stuff. You think that's submitting to you? You think that's what a wife's supposed to do? Cuss you out, yell at you, husband in your face, calling you everything but a child of God. You think that's what a husband and wife dynamic is supposed to look like? Especially when there are children involved? So, we talk about believers and unbelievers. The way I look at it is a believer is somebody who follows in the word. A non-believer, even if you do go to church, is somebody who don't. And if you're not following what the husband and wife dynamic is supposed to look like, then are you really pleased to dwell with that person? Because some people, man, I'm gonna be honest. I've talked to divorced people before, and Some people, man, they'll do stuff purposely, withhold sex, or go out and gamble, or withhold money and all this other stuff. Because a lot of times they don't really want to be with you. They don't want to tell you. Some people stay married for the aesthetics. But if they ain't pleased to dwell with you, I've been called to peace. I don't, there is no provisions in there for you to get remarried. But we got a question about rule number 3. Refer back to rule number 1. If you can't contain yourself, then marry. That he might sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of water by the word, that he might present it to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that it should be holy and without blemish. So ought men to love their wives as their own bodies. He that loveth his wife loveth himself. For no man ever yet hated his own flesh, but nourished and cherished it, even as the Lord the church. For we are members of his body, of his flesh, and of his bones. For this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall be joined unto his wife, and they two shall be one flesh. This is a great mystery, but I speak concerning Christ and the church. Nevertheless, let every one of you in particular so love his wife, even as himself, and the wife see that she reverence her husband. Amen. I guess some other stuff, but that's all I have. I don't